Hi, Coach. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. How you doing this morning?
Great, thank you. Going by what we read in sort of the recruiting media and stuff, it seems like you guys are getting really good response to whatever you're doing in terms of adjusting to this unique situation in terms of recruiting. What do you think? What do you think you're doing that works? What adjustments have you made, and what do you think is connecting with kids?
Well, I think recruiting in general still comes down to, one great ingredient, and that's relationship, and we're working really hard to stay connected. Obviously it's challenging, but with the way social media is right now and, all these smartphones, we still have the ability to reach out, text, obviously receive some incoming calls. It's just a lot of technology out there that allows us to stay connected to these young men and their families. And, probably to be honest, the only thing that's really missing is the opportunity to get the guys on campus, which obviously when we get them to Happy Valley is a plus anytime we can have them around. But at this point, it's just trying to work really hard to stay connected through social media, text, and phone calls when we can.
Greg Pickle, Penn Live.
Good morning, Coach. Thanks for doing this. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Greg. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Another recruiting question. Throughout your career, no matter where you've been, you've recruited the Midwest very well. What's allowed you to do that? What kind of relationships do you have out there, and why is that an important region for Penn State to recruit from a overall standpoint?
Well, I think proximity always plays a part. Anytime you're recruiting, you're not just recruiting a young man, but you're recruiting a family. And having an opportunity to stay close to home or within that 6-hour radius, if you will, I think it always plays an important role to the family. So I think the proximity is a big advantage that we have when you're talking about recruiting the Midwest. And for me personally, I think just because obviously, even though I have this boyish look, I've been recruiting for a long time, and I've made a lot of great relationships, around the country, particularly in the Midwest. And I've coached at a lot of different stops along the way. And, again, as I mentioned in the earlier post, relationships are everything, and I've had a chance to develop a lot of great ones and ones that, really bode well for me in the university.
Frank Bodani, New York Daily Record. Oh, sorry, Frank. Hold on. Sorry, Frank. All right, go ahead, Frank. Sorry. Well, still not working.
How about
Frank's
now?
not there?
Hey, there you go. How about that, Coach? Can you hear me?
Yep.
We got you, Frank.
All right, great. You have some experience back there, some personality, some leaders. Can you talk about the importance of what guys like Lamont Wade, Brisker, Sutherland, what their role is, not just in the season maybe coming up, but right now during these challenging times? Can you talk about how they're dealing with it?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's dealing with it, in their own way. We obviously have our Penn State family, but, they have their families at home as well. So, first of all, it's super difficult. We understand that, it's a lot of things that go into this thing, but they're holding up. Anytime we get an opportunity to come together as a family, through technology, it's always a great thing. Lamont's at home, with his family, and, he's working hard because they're still doing school. They're having to take classes, and keep up with those things. And again, it's challenging, but, Brisker the same way, and even Sutherland. So, as far as leading, those guys obviously talk amongst each other and encourage each other. And, there obviously are going to be some times when it's a little bit more difficult than others just because of the situation that we're in. But I think we have a pretty strong brotherhood within our room that allows particularly some of our older guys and guys that have been around the block to try to keep these younger guys up. And I think that's the role that Brisker and Sutherland and even Lamont are playing, very well, best they can, given the circumstances.
Next up is Audrey Snyder with The Athletic.
Hey, Tim. Good morning. Thanks for your time.
Hey, Audrey. I know it's close to football time when I see you, so it makes me feel good. How are you?
There you go. I'm doing well. Thanks.
Good.
I'm just wondering, I asked Kirk about this the other day too. How do you guys kind of measure? I mean, you guys are meeting online with the position groups, But how do you measure that progress? And he had mentioned that you guys were doing some quizzes, or he was anyway. Are you guys doing those as well on Fridays?
Yeah, we do. Not necessarily just Fridays, but we quiz them. But for me personally, and I think every coach has their own style. I quiz them every time we meet. Anytime we have an opportunity to talk football, I think it's a quiz involved. I think you ask a question and you want a response. And if they don't give you the right response, then obviously they're not passing the test, if you will. So. We try to stay engaged. It's not just a presentation every time we meet. There's a presentation and then there are questions. I like to call them pop quizzes, if you will. And so far, our guys have been great. I feel good about the group that I have, and they're pretty engaged, and they want to get better, and they understand this is an opportunity. Obviously that we can't be on the field, but mentally, we can still continue to grow and work, at a pace that we feel that'll put us in position to be successful. So, but as far as, the true traditional tests and quizzes, yeah, we're doing those as well.
Next up is Donnie Collins with the Times Tribune.
Hey, Tim. Wanted to ask you about Jaquan Brisker and kind of the growth he showed last year, kind of learning a new position with some new responsibilities than he had at the JUCO level. How do you think he did with that kind of progress, and what do you think the next step is for him?
Brisker, I thought he had a really good season, given that, he got there in the summer and, had to try to learn it, obviously at a quick pace, but he did well. Brisker's a worker. He loves to work. He loves to play the game of football. I'm excited. I'm excited about the direction that he's headed. Obviously we didn't get a chance to go through spring football, but the winter conditioning, I thought every week he got better, in terms of his stamina, his strength, everything that we asked him to do so far, he's answered the bell. So I'm excited. I think obviously for this fall or the next time we get an opportunity to play, I think just like anything, anytime you have a chance to have some experience, you typically grow. And, I know he's really taken it upon himself to try to not just learn the position that he was playing in the fall, which was predominantly to our field side, but now he's learning the boundary side as well, and some of our nickel movements as well. So he's just trying to learn and get a better grasp of the total defense and not just necessarily his responsibility. And based on, what we've had in our meetings, I feel like he's headed in the right direction.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle.
Good morning, Tim. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, good morning.
Tim, you mentioned recruiting, and with the uncertainty of the next few months, are you finding, and the possibility that there may be no camps, are you finding that prospective recruits are looking to make their decisions sooner rather than later?
It's pretty fluid, I think, it just depends, if a young man has been on your campus multiple times or any campuses multiple times, I think he may be more inclined to make a decision just because of the familiarity. But then some of the ones that you're recruiting that you have not had the opportunity to have on campus, but you've developed a, nice relationship via, social media and technology, I think those guys are hoping, that, once this thing is under control, that they'll have an opportunity to visit. So I just think it's a fluid situation. Again, as I keep referencing, the parents are involved with a lot of young men, and if they haven't had a chance to vet some of these coaches and get on campuses, I think they're keeping some of the guys from making a commitment early. But for some of the other ones, I think if they feel comfortable enough, they are pulling the trigger. So I don't think it's a one-size-fit-all type of mentality. I think it's pretty fluid.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247.
Tim, you guys have seen and are seeing a sustained level of recruiting success in Detroit. Can you talk about your roots there, kind of how competitive that is, and how you've gone about doing it beyond just having those roots there?
Well, I think it is a competitive area in general. I think if you're in the Midwest, which is, Big Ten footprint, you're fighting all the, the major players. And, obviously, yeah, I grew up there, I played in the area, I've coached in the area, I think that's awesome. But at the same time, you still have to do a great job of vetting the right people, making sure that the kids truly understand, what Penn State brings to the table. So it is a challenge. I don't take it for granted because that's where I'm from. I know the young men that come out of that area, a lot of them are very blue collar and, hardworking and, are just looking for an opportunity, to continue to grow, not only, as an athlete, but obviously, academically. And, I feel like obviously Penn State gives that in spades. So, I feel like we have a really good product to sell and a great opportunity to sell. And a lot of kids have obviously been receptive to that. And, but, again, just not taking it for granted and continuing to, go in and act like it. The area is new to me, if you will, and turning over every stone, making sure that, I'm evaluating every guy, whether, he has no offers or has many offers, just continuing to recruit it as hard as I possibly can. I think it's giving us an opportunity to be successful.
John Patishnock, happyvalley.com.
Hey, good morning, Tim, and thanks for the time this morning.
Yep.
Hey, Garrett Taylor posted to social media a few days ago saying that he wouldn't be where he is today without you. And overall, as your coaching career has developed, what have you learned works best for you in terms of motivating players and getting the best out of them?
Wow, that's a good question. Again, I don't want to be cliche, but I think, being able to adapt and adjust. I don't think every kid's the same, just like every adult's not the same. So I think you have to get to know the kid, figure out, what motivates him, what's important to him, and figure out how to help him, achieve his goals. I think it's very simple that way, to be quite honest with you. I don't have a system that says, this is the way we're doing it and that's it. I try to figure out, how I can help you be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. And I think that resonates with most people. I love my guys. I truly love what I do. And hopefully those guys can feel that, because at the end of the day, for me personally, it's not just about football. It's about, helping develop these guys, not just as players, but as young men, and I know every coach says that, but obviously for me, I truly believe that it's personal. It really is. If a guy comes under my leadership and I don't feel like I've helped them reach their full potential, I always feel like I failed, and most guys will equate that directly with football, but it's not just football. That's just a part of it, So that's just always been my style, and hopefully if I've been able to help a lot of young men along the way, then I feel like I've been blessed and I'm walking in my calling.
Elton Hayes, CNHI, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Coach, how are you doing today?
I am good. How are you this morning?
Doing well. Thank you, man. Hey, Coach, your last answer, you kind of mentioned, you kind of tailor your coaching style to certain players, you adapt and adjust. I know you guys had 11 members come in early in January. So wondering, with the challenges that this situation presents with the pandemic, how are you all, navigating and what approach are you taking with these younger guys opposed to the guys who have maybe had more time in the system and are kind of used to things a little bit more?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, but once again, no different than what we're doing right now. The fact that I can see your face, gives me the opportunity to do the same thing with a lot of the younger guys. And, again, for them, it is more challenging because obviously they haven't had a chance to do it physically. They got just a small taste of what it would look like, going into spring ball. But as I continue to caution those guys, not to worry as far as, if they'll be ready, because, we have one of the best strength coaches in the country, if not the best. So I know when we have an opportunity, if we do, if we're blessed to, he'll get them what they need to be strong enough. But in the meanwhile, we have to do a great job of preparing mentally. And that's what these guys are doing. And I believe they'll be ready, given the opportunity to perform.
Peter Terpstra, WTAJ.
Hey, Coach. When it comes to the teams that make maybe the college football playoff this next year, do you think those are going to be the teams that found ways to make the most out of this time with their team scattered across the country? And how important is it to keep that sense of urgency going right now?
I think it's everything, whether you're thinking about it along the lines of making the playoffs or just trying to win the first game as we are, I think having an urgency, understanding that, We don't know, when we'll have an opportunity to play, but we know when we do, we have to be ready, and it could be tomorrow, it could be next month, it could be, 2 months from now. We have no idea. But the goal is every day we wake up and, we're trying to win the day, and if you can understand that mantra, if you will, and truly digest it, I think you have a chance to be successful. And, that's really what we preach in this program, that we want to be ready when our number is called. And the only way to be ready is to make sure that we're preparing as if, we're playing tomorrow, and that's the message to our young men.
Tyler Donahue, Lions 247.
Hey, Tim, hope you and your family are doing well through this. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, likewise.
Appreciate that. Player I wanted to get to is Trent Gordon. We heard from Brent Pry last week, said that you guys felt he checked off the necessary boxes to make that switch from cornerback to safety. How long had you kind of been evaluating him as a potential guy in your room? What does he bring there, and how does he factor into the competition on the depth chart in 2020?
Yeah, we've been thinking about that since the day we recruited him. I was heavily involved in his recruiting process with Coach Smith. So, we knew when we signed him, it was a possibility that, he could be a corner or he could be a safety. We typically recruit that way. We look for combo guys that have a skill set of a corner and size of a safety. And he fit that mold. So we're excited, to have an opportunity to bring him in our room. He just brings an element, obviously, from a cornerback perspective. He's been trained to cover. He has the size, the speed, to be able to fit in the box, as a safety. So, obviously time will tell, in terms of, how much playing time he gets, if you will. For us, we started just competing, learning, and I think he wants to do that. He's been great in the meetings. He's been hungry. I think he'll have an opportunity, to play both sides, the field side and the boundary side. And to be quite honest, I think that's what makes our room special. We have a lot of great young men who want to compete, and Trent adds to that. So we're excited. I love Trent, love his family. I love his competitive nature. So he'll get exactly what he earns, and I know he's ready to try to compete for a lot of it. So we're excited.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, Tim. Thanks for your time today.
Yeah, good morning, Joe.
I wanted to go back to a previous question you got, and you were talking about your ability to adapt and adjust to your guys. I would think that Lamont Wade has a pretty strong personality. How have you been able to adapt and adjust to him, and how have you seen his maturation grow as we've gone through this, especially during this strange time?
Yeah, he's obviously, I've had Lamont, for a year or two now, and, we've had a chance to get to know each other, and it takes time to learn, what motivates him. But Lamont is super smart. He's very motivated. He definitely wants to be the best version of himself he can possibly be. And, guys like that I naturally click with in general. So he's, to be quite honest, it's been great to see how well he's adapted to learning the position. The total position, not necessarily just his position, but he understands the boundary safety. He obviously had a significant role in playing our nickel back, so he's done a truly good job that way. And, all the guys respect him, because of his knowledge, because of his work ethic. And, this will be a big year for him from a leadership perspective. He was a guy that on Saturdays definitely brought all the energy, and our guys could feed off of him. But this year, I expect him to take another step in terms of, really, helping the kids prepare throughout the week, for some of the young guys who haven't had a chance to have significant roles, getting those guys, on the same page during the week so they're ready to play and feed off that energy that he brings on the weekend. So I'm excited about him, and we've definitely had a chance to get to know each other. He understands what our standards and our expectations are in our room. And I understand the energy and what makes him tick, to be quite honest. And I think it's been a pretty good marriage so far. And I think he's really just scratching the surface on how good he can be, going into his senior year.
Next up is John Sauber, Center Daily Times.
Hey, Tim. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, John.
You guys have a void with Garrett Taylor's departure. Has anyone stepped up to fill that void at this point? And how are you keeping things competitive for that spot without actually being able to get on the field?
Well, again, obviously Garrett was a tremendous, not only, player, at Penn State, but just a great ambassador for the university in general. He was a guy that, not just talked about wanting it all, but really walked it, great student, really good in the community. And obviously he showed up on Saturdays and played at a high level. So, but again, I think as I tell my guys, my seniors that are leaving, if you've truly done your job, you're leaving the place better than you found it, so I feel like he's done a great job of helping teach and mold some of the younger guys or some of the guys behind him, whether you're talking about a Jonathan Sutherland, whether you're talking about a Lamont Wade, or even Brisker, who was only there with them for a semester. But they all had an opportunity to watch how he conducted himself in our meetings, how he prepared, how hard he worked during the weight room, in the weight room, in our winter condition. And so I think he really left his mark. And I think those guys are ready to step up and continue with the tradition, no different than some of the other guys who left and set the bar for Garrett Taylor, a Nick Scott, a Marcus Allen, a Troy Apke. Again, tradition and success usually leaves clues, and it's up to me to make sure our players find those clues and react accordingly. So obviously when you talk about being competitive, during this time, we're trying to be competitive or creative, if you will. Again, I think one of the first questions were, are we quizzing our guys? We try to have some fun with it, put them in a competitive situation that way. But obviously, not being on the field or having an opportunity to just be around each other physically presents its own challenges that way. But we're making the best of it. No one's feeling sorry for us. We understand what the task at hand is, and I just truly believe our guys will be ready when we have our opportunity.
Next up, Jerry DePaula, Pittsburgh Tribune Review.
Hi, Tim. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm going to piggyback a little off of Frank and Joe's question on Lamont Wade. In your view, what is his ultimate upside as far as maybe the next level is concerned? And if I may, if you can talk a little bit about Joey Porter Jr. I know he's a corner, but his father was a very passionate player. Is he showing any of those same traits in your experience with him?
Yeah, well, starting with Lamont, I think he has a tremendous upside. He played on the hash, but he also showed the ability to play, in the slot, which I think is big. If you look at the next level, the NFL looks very similar to a lot of the college programs now, in my mind, with a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. And even when you have tight ends in the game, you're flexing them out. So you need to have guys in the game that, obviously can cover, but also have enough stout about him to be able to make tackles. And I think Lamont can do that. I think the ability for him to blitz and come off the edges sets him apart from some guys. And I think his overall energy that he brings and passion for the game that he brings is contagious within your defense. So I think those are traits that'll be very attractive to some guys at the next level. And, obviously once he finishes and helps us, continue our goals here, someone will be very fortunate to have him. As it relates to Jerry Porter, we're super excited about Jerry, about Porter. We really feel like, the size that he brings, the athleticism that he brings, he really has a chance to really, be one of the better players here. But, obviously he has to earn it. Everything is earned, not given, but, based on what we saw in the fall and based on the small window that we had with him during the winter conditioning, we really believe he's on the upswing and he has a chance to, really help this team in a great way. Joey, rather, I said Jerry, excuse me, Joey.
Next up is Nubias Wilburn, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Hey, Coach, how you doing? Good to meet you, man.
Yeah, good to meet you as well, brother.
Same here. Hope you and your family are safe. What have you learned about Coach Franklin or really anybody on the coaching staff during this time that maybe you wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise since the way
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
My bad. I said, what have you maybe learned about Coach Franklin or maybe any of the other assistant coaches that maybe you wouldn't have, considering how different the times are right now?
I don't think I've learned anything different because coach is still coach. You know, I mean, we're working and we're not missing a beat in terms of our preparation, our attention to detail, and you know, our meetings. You know, I think it's not necessarily what I've learned about him that's different. It's what I respect about him. You know, he's very consistent. You know, in his approach. You know, he makes sure he keeps us all accountable, and he brings a certain energy that's contagious. So. You know, I'm just excited and very fortunate to have the opportunity to work side by side with him, and obviously our staff. We've obviously had, you know, some turnovers, but you know, I feel really good about the men that I'm working with or come to work with every day. And I know that sounds funny when I say come to work every day, but no different than when I'm talking to you. We're able to see each other through technology, and you know, we feel like we got a really good staff, you know, and for me, relationships are everything. You know, for me, if I'm gonna go to work with guys and spend more time with them than I do with my own family, you know, I gotta truly, you know, respect those guys and truly love being around them. And I truly do, you know, and I think that starts from the leadership up top with Coach Franklin and, you know, the decisions he's made to bring some of these guys within our family.
All right, that concludes today's call. Thank you, Coach Banks, and thank you, everybody, for joining us.